As usual, the season started off with the potent Winter Nationals from Darlington, South Carolina. And in top fuel action, it was 1988 defending world champion Gene Snow on the line in the semifinal round. Snow was paired off against favorite Don Kohler. And Snow blew up in the semifinal round, giving Don Kohler an upset victory and assuring us of a new Winter Nationals champion.
On 3 successive runs.
In the finals, it was Pat Dakin against Bob Strauss. Pat Dakin picked up the victory for the Rupp and Dakin team to win the 1989 Winter Nationals. The action was heavy in Nitro Funny Car. In the final, it was Darrell Amberson against Brad Tuttle. Tuttle, driving Dale Paulding's old car, picked up the victory to give the Winter Nationals a brand new champion, and Tuttle his first ever national championship win. Pro Stock found second-generation drag racer Tim Neighbors paired up against Steve Schmidt from Indianapolis. And when the smoke had cleared, it was Tim Neighbors, the winner of Pro Stock. The non-alcohol funny car was the Ohio corn farmer Mark Thomas against Greg Moss. A red light start by Moss gave the automatic victory to Mark Thomas, and the corn farmer would begin an incredible march in 1989 toward the Alcohol Funny Car Championship. After the victory, when Thomas was interviewed for television, he made it clear he was out to win the World Championship this year.
Hey, we're going to stick it out and chase it this year. We got to now, right? You got a dream, go with it. Yes!
Then it was on to the granddaddy of them all, the Spring Nationals from Thunder Valley, Bristol, Tennessee. Bristol saw a lot of exciting action. For instance, this encounter in Top Sportsman. In the Alcohol Funny Car semifinals, Winter Nationals champion Mark Thomas was paired up against his old rival, Greg Moss. This time, Moss did not red light and was out on top of Thomas. Thomas tried to come back but could not pull off the victory. So this time, the win went to Greg Moss, and Thomas was out in the semifinals. Then in the finals, Greg Moss had to go up against the Texan Peter Gallen. If Moss was to catch Thomas in the World Championship points, he needed this victory. He didn't get it. Pete Gallen picked up the Spring Nationals Championship, but Moss had 2 runner-up finishes, which put him into the points lead. In Pro Stock, it was Warren Johnson against Darrell Alderman. It was WJ picking up the victory in Pro Stock, barely nosing out the Mopar. Drag racing oftentimes comes down to a fraction of a second. This was Johnson's margin of victory. The NHRA point standings in Pro Stock saw the youngster Tim Neighbors with his Winter Nationals victory on top and Steve Schmidt in a distant second place. Now, Nitro Funny Car action. Ed McCullough, the ace, against second-generation drag racer Scott Coletta on the line. Scott Coletta has problems, but drives through the smoke to pick up the win over the ace. victory was costly, however, for Coletta, as he could not make the final round. Tony McCollum singled to a Nitro Funny Car victory. McCollum, the first black man to ever win an IHRA Nitro Funny Car Championship. So the points saw Brad Tuttle out on top with Tony McCollum in a close second place. Top fuel action as the kings of the sport were on the line at Thunder Valley. In the semifinals, Gene Snow would be up against the point leader, Pat Dakin. If Snow was to get back in the championship hunt, he would have to drop Pat Dakin at this event. Snow went up in smoke off the line, taking a little tire spin, but picks up an easy victory over Jim Snow to even increase his points lead. The finals would find Columbus contractor Jim Head on the line against Pat Dakin. Both cars up in smoke instantly. But at the finish line, it would be Jim Head picking up the victory. With that runner-up finish, Pat Dakin padded the points lead. Gene Snow was in a struggling second place. On to the Northern Nationals at Milan Dragway, just outside of Detroit, Michigan. And a ball of fire for Don Kohler as he gave real meaning to IHRA's Night of Fire. On that same run, Hank Indris broke the IHRA world record. But Kohler stole all the fury with his sensational fireball show. Kohler walked away unscathed. Then in Sunday's final eliminations, in the quarterfinal round, it was points leader Pat Dakin up against Michael Brotherton. Brotherton blew an engine and was out of competition in the quarterfinal round. Dakin would march on to the semifinals. With that lucky break, Dakin moved into the semifinals against his old nemesis, Gene the Snowman Snow. Dakin moved off the line first, but Gene Snow out-horsepowered him to pick up the victory of that round. Then in the final, it was Gene Snow against Dennis Forcell. Snow made the top-end move again and won the Northern Nationals to make a major move in the points battle. And with that victory at Milan, Michigan, Snow would move within just 30 points of Pat Dakin. Mountain Motor Pro Stocks came to the line at Milan, and Kenny Koretsky dropped out points leader Tim Neighbors in the first round. The crowd was stunned. In the semifinals, Kenny Koretsky came up against Tricky Ricky Smith and punched on the red light, giving Ricky Smith the victory and the run into the final round. So in the final round, it would be defending world champion Ricky Smith he would be up against the Ohio Pro Stock professional Mark Powick. Tricky Ricky picked up the victory of the Northern Nationals. Tim Neighbors maintained his lead, but Ricky Smith was threatening in second place. Jerry Caminito made it into the finals in Nitro Funny Car action at the Northern Nationals. His opponent, the potent Doc Halliday. Caminito with a big hole shot. Halliday had problems. Caminito wins the IHRA Northern Nationals for 1989. Doc Halliday, however, maintains the points lead. Brad Tuttle will move to second place. On to alcohol funny car action at the Northern Nationals. Thomas would have problems keeping it on the track and gave the fans a real thrill. In the quarterfinals, it would be Mark Thomas against Dave Sebring driving Dan Nemo's car. Sebring upset Mark Thomas. In the semifinals, it was the potent Greg Moss up against Dave Sebring, now known as the Giant Killer. Could he stop Moss? Sebring pulled ahead to upset Greg Moss and move into the final. In the final round, Terry Mullins, the potent Tennessean, moved to the line against Sebring. Sebring had problems and had to shut off. Mullins would single for the victory. The points gap became larger as Mark Thomas fell to a distant second behind points leader Greg Moss. Then it was on to the Gateway Nationals at St. Louis International Raceway. Don Kohler once again thrilled the fans during the night of fire action with another fireball and burn down. Once again, Kohler walked away uninjured. number one qualifying position was picked up by John Kerry. A new track record for St. Louis, 5.33 seconds, 230 miles per hour. The Top Fuel Finals on Sunday afternoon found John Kerry once again on the line. This time he was against points leader Pat Bacon. Kerry goes up in smoke. Bacon has an easy win for the victory of the Gateway National. The NHRA points were important as Pat Bacon increased his lead over Gene Snow. The Pro Stock action was going to be very exciting. Tricky Ricky Smith wants to pick up a world championship again. He explains to us his strategy.
Me and Tim right now is pretty tight in these points. If we can do one round better than him today, we'll take a points lead. So that's kind of what we'd like to do is just do one more round better than Tim Neighbors and then try to go and win the race. So it may get down to where me and Tim's in the finals, so we're on the opposite side of the sheet, so then we just have to see what happens.
Ricky started his march to the finals against Buddy Ingersoll of Buick H. Ingersoll punched on the red light. Ricky would move into the semifinal round. On the other side of the sheet, Tim Neighbors against Billy Ewing. It was not to be as Billy Ewing sets Neighbors out. Ricky then went up against Mark Powick. With an easy victory, Ricky would move into the finals, but not against Tim Neighbors. Billy Ewing and Ricky Smith on the line in the finals. Ricky needs this victory to take over the points lead. And Ricky Smith picks up the Gateway Nationals Championship.
Championship 185.88.
Points are now reversed. Neighbors falls into second place. Tricky Ricky takes the lead. Alcohol funny car action. Ronnie Midyett against Mark Thomas. Ronnie Midyett would pick up his first IHRA victory, leaving Mark Thomas as runner-up. Greg Moss only 85 points ahead of runner-up Mark Thomas in the point standings. The Nitro Funny Car Finals would find Doc Holliday against R.C. Sherman, who gave us his comments about the final run.
I think, yeah, we're going to try and be very careful because, like I said, the great equalizer is that racetrack, and we have to be very careful not to overpower it, and that's what we have to concentrate on today.
Both R.C. Sherman and Doc Holliday would have easy runs into the finals. Everyone waited in great anticipation as Sherman and Holliday lined up for the final championship run. Sherman had problems. Doc Holliday wins his first ever IHRA national event. Doc Holliday takes a commanding points lead over R.C. Sherman. We move on to Norwalk, Ohio, and the prestigious World Nationals. A part of the IHRA Night of Fire was always jet funny car action. One funny car had a problem. The car caught on fire and started to burn to the ground. The car became more of a blazing inferno as the BTS safety crew tried to move in and pull the driver out of danger.
Hey, you feeling okay? I'm feeling okay. See, my pocket took a big one here. My pocket went big. We're going to have to go. Thanks a lot. I tried to put the extinguisher on your head.
The driver escaped with only smoke inhalation. The car suffered a much grimmer fate.
That is what drag racing is all about. Safety and excitement. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, make some noise for Roy.
Sunday afternoon, top fuel action. It'll be Gene Snow against Pat Dakin. Snow comments.
I was looking at the numbers the other day. I think we're maybe less than 100 points apart, and I think it's going to be real close, and we can't afford to let him get ahead of us too much more.
In the semifinal round, it'll be Pat Dakin against Richard Holcomb. Dakin had problems staging the car and was forced to shut off. Richard Holcomb moved on for the victory and a berth into the finals. In the final, Richard Holcomb would face none other than Gene the Snowman Snow. Not to be denied, Gene Snow picked up the World Nationals Championship. With his World Nationals victory, Snow moved to within 390 points of points leader Pat Dakin. Nitro funny car action at the World Nationals found the Budweiser king of Kenny Bernstein on the line. He would go up against the St. Louis champion Doc Holliday. Bernstein pulls out the victory to retire the doctor. Bernstein suffered severe engine damage. In the finals, Bernstein would face R.C. Sherman. Sherman needs the victory if he's to keep pace with Doc Holliday. Sherman edges out Bernstein. Sherman pulls to within 100 points of the leader, Doc Holliday. Pro stock action saw points leader Ricky Smith going out of competition early. This gave second place points contender Tim Neighbors a shot at taking back the lead. Neighbors fell at the hands of Larry Morgan. In the finals, it would be Pat Musey against Larry Morgan. Musey punches on the red light. It'll be Larry Morgan, the World Nationals champion. Ricky Smith maintains his lead over Tim Neighbors. Alcohol funny car action at the World Nationals. In the semifinals, the two rivals met once again. Greg Moss against Mark Thomas. Moss nearly crosses the center line, but then straightens it out to defeat Thomas. In the final, Greg Moss would go up against 5-second Bob Newberry. Newberry bumps off Moss and forces him to settle for a runner-up finish. But with that finish, he increases his lead over second place, Mark Thomas. The action moved on to the U.S. Open Nationals in Darlington, South Carolina. We begin with Top Fuel. In the quarterfinals, Pat Dakin loses to Hank Indris. Then Gene Snowman Snow comes to the starting line against Richard Holcomb. Snow picks up an easy victory. Snow then had to face Hank Indris. Hank Indris bumps off Gene Snow. In the finals, Earl Whiting picked up an easy victory. Whiting has an easy win because Hank Indris exploded an engine during the burnout. Pat Dakin remains on top in the final over Gene Snow. In Nitro Funny Car action, it was R.C. Sherman on the line against Darrell Amberson. Both cars have trouble, but Amberson picks up the victory. In other quarterfinal action, Doc Holliday against Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein to a smoky win. The final would find Kenny Bernstein against Darrell Amberson. Amberson goes up in smoke. Bernstein with an easy victory to win the U.S. Open Nationals. R.C. Sherman moves on top of the points chase. Doc Holliday only 20 points behind. Alcohol funny car action at Darlington. Mark Thomas lost oil pressure and had to drop out of competition right on the starting line. That gave Greg Moss a single run. But Moss lost an engine. The final, Terry Mullins to single for the victory when Greg Moss could not make the call. Greg Moss, however, has a commanding points lead over Mark Thomas. Pro stock action. Tim Neighbors is in the semifinals against Mark Powick. and moves into the final.
45-9 at 1.
The pressure is on Ricky Smith as he has to stop Lee Dean to get into the final. Smith, with an easy victory, made it into the final. The points war intensifies. In the final, it'll be Tim Neighbors against Ricky Smith. The World Championship is coming right down to the wire.
750, giving it. Takes on Tim Neighbors.
Smith is out first, holds the lead, and picks up the U.S. Open Nationals Championship.
186.
You know, I know I need to win this race here just to give me a little bit of an edge, not much, but a little bit of an edge going into Bristol. You know, if I can just go up there and make a round or two, I think I can pull it off.
With that win, Ricky Smith increased his points lead by 295 points. On to the Fall Nationals at Thunder Valley in Bristol, Tennessee. The stage is set. The final event, the War of the Leaders. In Nitro Funny Car, Doc Holliday. He'll be going against R.C. Sherman. In Pro Stock, a young Tim Neighbors. He's up against Tricky Ricky Smith. In Alcohol Funny Car, Greg the Boss Boss. In Top Fuel, Pat Dakin. Night of fire action on Saturday night at Thunder Valley. Anything is apt to happen. Doc Holliday, trying to qualify high in the standings, loses control of the car. Smashes into the guardrail. R.C. Sherman qualifying. Picked up the #1 qualifying position. Bob Gilbertson and Greg Moss. Moss was on a run. #1 qualifier. Sunday's final. White knuckle tie. Tim Neighbors against Harold Tenn. Tenn was on a run and bumped Tim Neighbors out of competition early. Ricky Smith came up against Jim Yates. Ricky Smith wins and moves to the next round. John Noble then faced Ricky Smith. Ricky Smith clinches the World Championship. He wins the World Championship over second place, Tim Neighbors. World Championship still on the line. Pat Dakin singled, and with that point, won the Top Fuel World Championship. But there was still plenty of action. Whiting against Hotham. Earl Whiting wins the Spring Nationals. Pat Dakin won the World Championship handily over Gene Snow. Alcohol Funny Car World Championships on the line. Shad Wheeler against Danny Nemo. Nemo hits the wall violently, ricochets, and straightens it out after losing his body. Nemo severed an axle. You can see the tire rolling free away from the car. Dan Nemo described the incident from the driver's point of view.
Felt like, it left good and then it was sideways. And I thought, oh no. The only thing I was worried about was, how when the body comes against the throttle linkage, jamming it. Well, I was trying to hold it down, and as the body was coming off, I could hear it hit the throttle a couple times. Oh, Lord, here we go. When I got it around straight, I drove it to a stop and shut it off. And I wanted to get out and let my wife know that I was all right because I knew she'd be a wreck.
In the Alcohol Funny Car final, Ron Scott won the race when Greg Moss ran completely off the track. But Moss had picked up the World Championship over Mark Thomas. In Nitro Funny Car, Doc Holliday could not make the final, which handed the World Championship to R.C. Sherman.
Too much paint in the fuel lines right now. If we go out and try and make a run, it's going to plug a nozzle and probably lean the motor out, catch fire, blow the blower off the body. And it's a pretty big risk to take right now.
We came out last night to prove that we could win it. I'm sorry to have to win it this way, and I feel bad for Doc because I know he wanted to race too, and I know he's a good competitor, but it's the first time I've ever won a World Championship, and I'll take it anyway. Anybody will give it to me.
R.C. Sherman picks up the World Championship over Doc Holliday. The 1989 World Champions, R.C. Sherman, the Rapestus Funny Car. Pat Dakin, the Rupp and Dakin entry. Greg Moss from Knoxville, Tennessee, and Fenton, Missouri. And finally, Tricky Ricky Smith in the Stroh's Light Pontiac. Home video from Masters Entertainment Group.